Exhausted and angry, she texted a rant about her blood-sucking boss and accidentally summoned the Vampire King. 50 luxury cars appeared outside her apartment. He believed she'd used ancient magic to command his presence. She was just a tired barista who hit the wrong number. The coffee maker sputtered its last breath at 11:47 p.m., and Lydia wanted to cry. She stared at the dead machine like it had personally betrayed her. 12-hour shift. Feet screaming. Lower back staging a full rebellion. And now this. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her boss, Derek. Need you in early tomorrow.
6 Uhr morgens sharp.
Don't be late. Lydia's eye twitched. She'd just worked a double covering for his vacation. Her thumbs moved before her brain could stop them. You know what? I'm done being drained dry by blood-sucking managers who think sleep is optional. I hereby summon the King of Darkness himself to deal with you. At least vampires are honest about what they are. She hit send, then immediately froze. Wrong number. The screen showed an unknown contact, a string of numbers she didn't recognize. Her exhausted brain must have fat-fingered Derek's name and selected something else entirely. Perfect, she muttered, face-planting onto her lumpy couch. Just perfect. The apartment was silent except for the distant wail of sirens and Mrs. Chen's TV blaring through the thin walls. Lydia closed her eyes, ready to let sleep claim her. Then her phone erupted. Not a buzz. Not a ringtone. A sound like wind chimes made of ice, crystalline and impossible. The screen glowed violet, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Text appeared in letters that seemed to shimmer and shift. Summoning acknowledged. Coordinates locked. Arrival imminent. Lydia's blood went cold. What the? The message dissolved into symbols she'd never seen before. Ancient, flowing script that hurt to look at. Her phone grew hot in her palm, then ice cold, then normal again. Silence. She laughed nervously. Okay. Clearly I need sleep. Maybe some vitamins. Possibly therapy. Then she heard them. Engines.
Dozens of them.
The deep, predatory purr of vehicles that cost more than her entire apartment building. Lydia stumbled to her window and looked down at the street. Her heart stopped. 50 cars. Maybe more. Obsidian black luxury vehicles that gleamed under the streetlights like polished weapons. They arrived in perfect formation, silent except for those purring engines, filling every available space on her narrow city street. Neighbors were already peering out windows. Mrs. Chen's TV went quiet. The lead car's door opened. A man stepped out, and the world seemed to tilt sideways. He was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble by someone who understood beauty as a form of cruelty. But his eyes. God, his eyes. Even from 3 stories up, Lydia could see them. Silver gray, luminous, ancient. He looked up, directly at her window, directly at her. Their gazes locked, and Lydia felt something snap into place in her chest, like a door she didn't know existed had just been kicked open. The man smiled. It wasn't comforting. He moved, and suddenly he was at her building's entrance, moving with a fluid grace that made her dizzy to watch. She heard the main door open, without anyone buzzing him in. Footsteps in the stairwell, measured and unhurried. Lydia backed away from her door, heart hammering. This isn't real. This is a stress hallucination. I'm asleep on the couch and 3 knocks. Perfectly spaced. Impossibly loud. Miss Lydia Chen, the voice that came through the door was velvet over steel. I am Adrian Castellane.
You summoned me.
I have answered. Her mouth went dry. I didn't. It was a mistake. Wrong number. The old channels do not activate by mistake. A pause. Please open the door. I would prefer not to alarm your neighbors further. Lydia looked through the peephole. Adrian stood there, flanked by 2 others, a woman with white blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice, and a man built like a tank wearing sunglasses indoors at midnight. This was insane. This was impossible. She opened the door anyway. Adrian's presence filled her tiny entryway like water flooding a sinking ship. He studied her with those unsettling silver eyes, his expression shifting from expectation to confusion to something sharper. "You," he said slowly, "have no idea what you've done." "I texted the wrong number," Lydia said, hating how her voice shook. "That's it. That's all. Just delete it and leave." The blonde woman leaned in, inhaling deeply. "She smells human. Completely human." "Impossible," the tank muttered. The summoning signature was flawless. Third-tier invocation, pre-treaty era. Adrian raised one hand, silencing them. He stepped closer to Lydia, and she caught his scent, winter air and old books and something darkly sweet. "Show me your phone," he said. It wasn't a request. Lydia's hands trembled as she unlocked it and showed him the message. Adrian's eyes widened fractionally, the first crack in his composed exterior. "Blood and shadow," he whispered. She used the sovereign address. The exact phrasing. He looked at her with new intensity. "Who taught you the old tongue?" "Old tongue? I was complaining about my boss." "Your complaint activated a summoning reserved for royal authority." These words, he pointed at her screen, are a direct command sequence used only by those with inherited right to vampire governance. His voice dropped. "No human has successfully invoked this channel in 300 years. The last who tried was executed for treason." The room spun. Lydia grabbed the doorframe for support. "I'm a barista," she said weakly. "I make lattes. I can't even grow basil without killing it. I don't do magic." Adrian exchanged glances with his companions. Some silent communication passed between them. "Nevertheless," he said, turning back to her with a smile that showed just the hint of very sharp canines, "you have invoked an unbreakable summons. And until we determine how and why, Miss Chun, you are coming with us." "Like hell I am." The blonde woman's hand shot out, catching Lydia's wrist. Her grip was gentle but absolutely immovable. "We can do this the easy way or the entertaining way," she purred. "Your choice." Lydia looked at Adrian, at the 50 cars waiting below, at her sad little apartment with its dead coffee maker and unpaid bills. "Am I going to die?" she whispered. Adrian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That depends entirely on what we discover about you," he extended his hand. "But you have my word, ancient and binding, that I will not be the one to harm you." Somehow, terrifyingly, Lydia believed him. She took his hand. It was cold as winter midnight and steady as stone. And just like that, Lydia Chen's ordinary life ended. The convoy moved through the city like a silent serpent, every traffic light turning green as they approached. Lydia sat in the back of Adrian's car, leather seats softer than her bed, everything smelling of expensive cologne and danger. Adrian sat across from her, studying her like she was a puzzle missing half its pieces. The blonde woman drove. The tank man rode shotgun, occasionally muttering into a phone in a language that sounded like breaking glass. "Where are we going?" Lydia's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Somewhere secure," Adrian said. "Somewhere we can determine exactly what you are." "I'm a tired barista who made a typo." "Typos don't activate blood-sealed channels." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about your family. Your parents. Grandparents. Any unusual abilities?" "Strange occurrences." Lydia's throat tightened. "My parents died when I was 6.
Car accident.
I was raised by my grandmother until she passed 3 years ago." She swallowed hard. "There's nothing unusual about us. We're boring. Normal. Human." Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. "Your grandmother's name?" "Eleanor Chun. Born Eleanor Morrison before she married." Lydia frowned. "Why?" The tank man turned around, sunglasses still on. "Morrison. Western European root. Could be. Possibly." Adrian cut him off. "Or coincidence," but his expression said he didn't believe in coincidences. The cars turned onto a private road, leaving the city lights behind. Trees pressed close on both sides, old-growth giants that blocked out the moon. They drove for 20 minutes before emerging at an estate that made Lydia's brain short-circuit. It looked like someone had transplanted a European manor into the middle of nowhere. Stone walls, Gothic windows,
Actual gargoyles.
the entrance was lit by torches, real burning torches, that cast dancing shadows across manicured grounds. "You've got to be kidding me," Lydia breathed. "The aesthetic is traditional," Adrian said dryly. "Some of my court are old-fashioned." They led her inside, through halls lined with portraits of pale, beautiful people who all had those same predatory eyes. Lydia caught glimpses of rooms filled with antiques worth more than entire museums. Everything whispered of age and power and secrets. The blonde woman, whose name, Lydia learned, was Vera, guided her to a sitting room dominated by a fireplace large enough to roast a car. 6 people waited there, arranged in a semicircle like judges at a trial. Lydia's stomach dropped. "Adrian," said a man with silver hair and a face like carved ice. "This is the human who dared invoke the sovereign address. She claims it was accidental, Marcus." Adrian positioned himself between Lydia and the others. The gesture felt protective. "Accidental," a woman with red hair and emerald eyes laughed coldly. "The address requires intent, specific phrasing, blood resonance. This human either knows exactly what she's doing, or she's a puppet for someone who does." "I'm right here," Lydia snapped, fear turning into anger. "And I'm telling you, I was texting my boss. That's it." "Show them the message," Adrian said quietly. Lydia pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Marcus took it, read it, and his face went absolutely still. He passed it around. Each vampire who read it had the same reaction: shock, then suspicion, then something that looked almost like fear. "The exact phrasing," Marcus whispered. "Word for word. The old summoning protocol." "But she's human," another vampire protested. "Completely human. I can smell it from here." "Then we have a problem," said the red-haired woman. "Either she's lying about the accident, or something gave her knowledge she shouldn't possess. Both scenarios are dangerous." Adrian held up one hand. "We test her."
Now.
Before jumping to conclusions. "Test me how?" Lydia demanded. Vera stepped forward holding a silver bowl filled with clear liquid. "Speak your full name into the water."
Just that.
"Nothing else." "This is insane." "Do it," Adrian said, his voice commanding. "If you're truly innocent, you have nothing to fear." Lydia wanted to run, to scream, to wake up from this nightmare. Instead, she stepped forward and looked into the bowl. "Lydia Eleanor Chun," she said clearly. The water exploded. Not literally, but it lit up from within, glowing with soft blue light that pulsed and swirled. Shapes formed in the water, symbols that looked ancient and powerful. The light grew brighter, and Lydia heard something like distant singing, voices layered over voices, speaking words she didn't understand but somehow felt in her bones. The room went dead silent. Marcus spoke first, his voice hoarse. "Blood and ashes. She's resonant." "Impossible," the red-haired woman breathed. The true speaker line died out. "We made certain of it." Adrian's face had gone very still. Apparently not certain enough, he looked at Lydia with new eyes. Not suspicion now, but something closer to awe. "Miss Chun, I believe you that the text was accidental. But what happened wasn't. Your words carry power. Real, measurable, supernatural power." "That's crazy," Lydia whispered, staring at the still glowing water. "That's dangerous," Marcus corrected coldly. "She's an untrained true speaker. Do you understand what that means? Every careless word could trigger consequences. She's a loaded weapon that doesn't know it's loaded." The red-haired woman stood abruptly. "We should eliminate the threat.
Now.
Before she causes." "She is under my protection," Adrian said, his voice dropping to something that made the air vibrate. "Anyone who touches her answers to me personally." The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. Lydia looked at her hands, at the glowing water, at these impossible creatures discussing her fate like she was a bomb waiting to explode. "What," she said slowly, "is a true speaker?" Adrian met her eyes. "Someone whose words can change reality itself. And you, Lydia Chen, are the first one in 3 centuries." Lydia didn't sleep. How could she? They'd given her a room, if you could call something with a 4-poster bed, velvet curtains, and a chandelier just a room, and locked her in for her own protection. She'd paced until dawn crept through the windows, golden light making the nightmare feel somehow more real. A knock at the door. Adrian entered without waiting for an answer, carrying a tray with breakfast that smelled better than anything from her usual bodega run. "Eat," he said, setting it on a table. "We have work to do." "Work?" Lydia's voice cracked from disuse. "I need to go home. I have a shift. My cat needs feeding. I can't just." "Your cat is being fed. I sent someone. And your boss received notice you're taking emergency family leave." Adrian's tone brooked no argument. "Right now, you're a danger to yourself and everyone around you. We need to teach you control before you accidentally level a city block." "I can't level a city block with words." The chandelier overhead flickered. Several crystals chimed softly, vibrating with resonance. Adrian pointed up. "You were saying?" Lydia stared at the chandelier, heart pounding. "That was—" "I didn't." "You did." Unconsciously, he pulled out a chair.
Seat. Eat.
"Then we begin." The food was incredible. Fresh fruit, pastries that melted on her tongue, coffee that made her want to weep with joy. Adrian watched her eat with the patience of someone who'd lived long enough that time meant nothing. "Explain it to me," Lydia finally said. "The true speaker thing. What does it actually mean?" Adrian steepled his fingers. In the old world, before vampires withdrew from human society, certain bloodlines existed that could speak with, let's call it, absolute authority. Their words carried weight beyond mere sound. A true speaker saying, "The door will open," didn't request, it commanded reality itself. That's impossible. So are vampires. Yet here we sit, he smiled slightly. Your lineage, the Morrison line, were mediators, peacekeepers. When supernatural factions warred, true speakers could enforce treaties through spoken agreements that became magically binding. They ended conflicts with words that made violence physically impossible. Lydia's grandmother had been quiet, gentle, always choosing her words carefully. She'd thought it was just Eleanor's nature. But maybe. Why did the line die out? Adrian's expression darkened. Power makes enemies. 300 years ago, the last known true speaker was assassinated by factions who found her authority inconvenient. We thought the bloodline ended there, he paused. We were wrong. So, I'm what? A genetic fluke. More likely, the trait skipped generations. Dormant until the right circumstances triggered it, he stood. Which brings us to your training.
Come.
He led her to a circular room lined with mirrors. Candles sat unlit around the perimeter. In the center, a simple wooden chair. Sit there, Adrian instructed. We're going to test your range and sensitivity. Lydia sat, feeling ridiculous. What do I do? Say, the candles should light. That's it. Intent matters. Phrasing matters. Try different versions. See what happens. Lydia took a breath. The candles should light. Nothing. The candles will light. Still nothing. She was starting to feel stupid when Adrian said, "Try commanding, not suggesting." True authority. Something stirred in Lydia's chest. Annoyance, maybe, or desperation to prove this wasn't all insane. She straightened in the chair. "Light," she said firmly. Every candle in the room burst into flames simultaneously. Not normal flame. Blue-white fire that cast no smoke, burning with impossible intensity. Lydia yelped and fell backward. The chair skidded. The flames immediately died. Fascinating, Adrian murmured, making notes in a small leather journal. Single-word commands are more potent. The power responds to concise authority. He looked at her. Try something else. The mirrors. Make them. I don't know. Frost over. I can't just. You can. You did. Try. Lydia stared at the nearest mirror, feeling foolish and terrified and weirdly exhilarated. Frost, she whispered. Ice spread across every mirror surface instantly, intricate patterns blooming like frozen flowers. The temperature in the room plummeted. Lydia could see her breath. Good, Adrian said, completely unbothered by the cold. Now stop it.
How?
Command it. You started the effect. You can end it. Thaw, Lydia said desperately. The ice vanished. Temperature returned to normal. She was sweating despite the lingering chill. This is insane, she gasped. This is absolutely insane. This is survival. Adrian knelt beside her chair, eyes serious. Listen carefully, Lydia. Every casual word you speak now carries potential consequences. I'm dying of thirst could literally dehydrate you. I could kill for coffee might trigger violent impulses in those around you. You must monitor everything. Every phrase. Every exclamation. The weight of it hit her like a truck. She couldn't just talk anymore. Couldn't vent. Couldn't exaggerate. Couldn't speak without calculating every syllable. I don't want this, she whispered. The shadows in the corner of the room deepened, responding to her emotion. Dark tendrils crept across the floor. Doesn't matter, Adrian said gently. You have it. Now you need to master it, or it will master you. Lydia looked at the shadows, at the frost-touched mirrors, at her own hands that suddenly felt like loaded weapons. Okay, she said carefully, weighing each word. Teach me. The shadows retreated. Adrian smiled. Better. Let's continue. 3 days of training left Lydia exhausted and paranoid about her own voice. She'd learned to speak in careful, measured sentences, no idioms, no exaggerations, nothing that could accidentally reshape reality. It was like walking a tightrope made of her own breath. Now Adrian was driving her somewhere new, just the two of them in a sleek black car cutting through the city's industrial district. Abandoned factories loomed like skeletal giants in the twilight. Where are we going? Lydia asked, then caught herself. Even simple questions felt dangerous now. A meeting, Adrian said tersely. Several clan leaders want to see you for themselves. Verify you're real. And if they don't like what they see, then tonight becomes complicated, he glanced at her. Stay close to me. Speak only if absolutely necessary.
Some of these vampires are
traditional. They won't appreciate what you represent, which is power they can't control. The car stopped at a massive warehouse, its windows broken, walls covered in graffiti. It looked abandoned, but Lydia counted at least a dozen luxury vehicles hidden in the shadows. The air felt charged, like before a lightning strike. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed. Torches lined the walls, again with the theatrical torches, casting dancing light across a space cleared of debris. 30 vampires stood in clusters, all turning to watch as Adrian and Lydia entered. The silence was suffocating. A woman stepped forward, tall, dark-skinned, wearing modern clothes but carrying herself like ancient royalty.
Adrian.
You actually brought her. As promised, Celine, Adrian's hand pressed gently against Lydia's lower back, guiding her forward. May I present Lydia Chen, true speaker. Alleged true speaker, said a man with a scar cutting through his pale face. For all we know, this is an elaborate performance. Some trick to consolidate your power, Adrian. My power needs no consolidation, Victor. Adrian's voice could have frozen blood. But if you doubt, test her yourself. Victor approached, circling Lydia like a shark. She forced herself to stand still, to breathe normally, to not show the terror clawing at her throat. Speak your name, Victor commanded. Lydia glanced at Adrian, who nodded slightly. She cleared her throat. Lydia Eleanor Chen. The air rippled. Just slightly, but every vampire in the room felt it. Several stepped back. Victor's eyes widened. Blood and ashes, he whispered. It's true. Worse than true, Celine said, approaching now. She's untrained, unstable. Do you understand what you've brought into our world, Adrian? A weapon that doesn't know its own trigger? I understand perfectly, which is why she remains under my protection while I train her. Your protection? A new voice, cold and mocking. A vampire emerged from the shadows, younger looking than the others, with platinum hair and eyes like chips of amber. Or your possession, cousin? Adrian's jaw tightened.
Damien.
I wondered when you'd show yourself. Cousin, Lydia whispered. Half-brother, technically, Damien corrected, smiling without warmth. Different mothers, same father, centuries of rivalry. But that's family for you, he addressed the crowd. Adrian claims to protect this human, but let's be honest, he's hoarding a strategic asset. A true speaker loyal to him could reshape the entire power structure. Command loyalty. Enforce his will. Make him unstoppable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathering. That's not, Lydia started. Quiet, Adrian said sharply. To the others, I have no intention of weaponizing her. True speakers were peacekeepers, not conquerors. Historically, yes, Damien said smoothly.
But times change.
And power. Power corrupts. How long before she speaks the wrong words? Before she commands something catastrophic? One bad day, one emotional outburst, and she could kill everyone in this room. I wouldn't, Lydia protested. Wouldn't you? Damien stepped closer. If someone threatened you, if someone hurt someone you cared about, in that moment of rage or fear, what might you say? The terrible thing was he had a point. 3 days ago, she texted about summoning the King of Darkness out of pure frustration. What might she say in actual danger? This debate is pointless, Celine interjected. The question is simple. Do we allow an uncontrolled true speaker to exist, or do we eliminate the threat before? She never finished. Something slammed into Lydia from behind. Not physical, but a wave of crushing force that drove her to her knees. Her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. Pressure built inside her skull, like her head might explode. Attack, someone shouted. Adrian moved faster than thought, pulling Lydia behind him. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Vampires scattered, some fleeing, others drawing weapons. The torches flared wildly. Another pulse of that invisible force struck, and this time Lydia saw its source, a symbol burning in the air above them, dripping with malevolent energy. A magical trap, preset, targeting her specifically. She's the target.
Victor Snaurid.
Someone wants her dead. The pressure intensified. Lydia gasped, fighting for air, for thought, for anything beyond the crushing pain. Words bubbled up instinctively, desperate, panicked words. Stop, she choked out. Stop. The command detonated through the warehouse like a shockwave. Every vampire froze mid-motion. The magical symbol shattered. The torches snuffed out simultaneously, plunging them into darkness. When emergency lights flickered on, 30 vampires stood motionless, caught by her unintentional command. Only Adrian could move, his ancient power protecting him. He looked at the frozen assembly, then at Lydia still gasping on the floor. Well, he said quietly, I'd say that proves you're real, and that you're in more danger than I thought. Damien's frozen form stood closest, his expression locked in something between shock and calculation. Someone had just tried to assassinate Lydia Chen. The question was, who? And how many others wanted her dead? The frozen vampires slowly regained movement as Lydia's panic-driven command faded. No one spoke. They simply stared at her with a mixture of fear and hunger that made her skin crawl. Adrian lifted her to her feet. We're leaving.
Now.
No one tried to stop them. The drive was silent except for the hum of the engine. Lydia's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd frozen 30 vampires with a single word. She'd felt their wills bend to hers like reeds in a hurricane. Where are we going? She finally whispered. Somewhere safer. Somewhere with answers. Adrian's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. That attack was sophisticated. Blood magic, preset specifically for you. Someone knew you'd be there. Your brother? Half-brother. And maybe. Damien's ambitious, but this felt older, more traditional. He turned onto a mountain road that wound upward through pine forests. Someone who knows the old ways of killing true speakers. They drove for 2 hours, climbing higher until the air grew thin and cold. Finally, they reached a plateau where a cave entrance yawned like an open mouth. Ancient symbols were carved around it, still glowing faintly in the darkness. A sanctuary, Adrian explained, parking. Built by the true speakers themselves, centuries ago. Protected by words so old, even I barely remember their language. Inside, the cave opened into something impossible, a vast library carved from living stone. Shelves stretched into darkness, filled with scrolls and books and tablets that looked older than civilization. Crystals embedded in the ceiling provided soft, steady light. "This is incredible," Lydia breathed, her fear momentarily forgotten. "This is your heritage." Adrian led her deeper, past sections labeled in languages she didn't recognize. Finally, he stopped at a section marked with a symbol that matched the one on her grandmother's old locket, the one Lydia wore under her shirt. He pulled out a leather-bound tome, its pages yellowed with age. "The Morrison Chronicles. Your family's history." Lydia took it with trembling hands. The first page showed a family tree stretching back centuries. Names in faded ink, connected by delicate lines. And there, near the bottom, Eleanor Morrison, married to James Chen. One daughter, Sarah. One granddaughter, Lydia. "My mother's not listed," Lydia said, touching Sarah's name. "She died young. Before her powers manifested." Adrian pointed to other names, marked with red ink. "These are the true speakers. See the pattern? It skips generations, sometimes 2 or 3. Always through the female line." Lydia turned pages, finding accounts written in old-fashioned script. Stories of speakers who'd ended wars, bound demons, forced peace treaties between warring supernatural factions. One entry made her stop cold. Eleanor Morrison, 1995, spoke the binding of silent voice to protect her bloodline. Sealed her own powers permanently to hide her granddaughter from those who hunt us. Died 2022, seal unbroken. "My grandmother," Lydia whispered. "She knew.
She knew what I was, and
She gave up her powers to protect me. To hide you," Adrian corrected gently. "But seals break. Usually upon the death of the caster. When Eleanor died 3 years ago, yours began to wake. Slowly, quietly, until your frustration and exhaustion gave them the perfect trigger." Tears blurred Lydia's vision. Her grandmother's careful words. Her insistence on thinking before speaking. The way she'd always said, "Words of power, Liddy. Choose them wisely." It hadn't been just grandmotherly wisdom. It had been training. Preparation for something Eleanor hoped would never come. "There's more," Adrian said, flipping to a section near the book's end. "The last true speaker. Catherine Morrison. Your great-great-great-grandmother." The entry was brief but brutal. Catherine Morrison, executed 1724. Betrayed by those she trusted, murdered for refusing to weaponize her gifts. Her final words cursed her killers. "You will never find peace." None survived the year. They killed her because she wouldn't help them. They killed her because they feared what would happen if she helped their enemies. Adrian closed the book carefully. True speakers represent ultimate authority. In the wrong hands, that's catastrophic. In the right hands, it's a threat to anyone who benefits from chaos and war. So, I'm either a weapon or a target. "You're a person," Adrian said firmly, surprising her with his intensity. "A person with a gift that terrifies powerful beings. But that doesn't define you." Catherine refused to be used. Eleanor sacrificed everything to protect you. You get to choose what kind of speaker you become. Lydia looked around at the library. Generations of her ancestors' knowledge, preserved and hidden away. All this history, All this power, and she'd been making minimum wage plus tips, completely oblivious. "The attack tonight," she said slowly. "Someone knows what I am. They want me dead before I learn control."
Yes.
"Which means we need to accelerate your training." Adrian pulled out more books, stacking them on a stone table. "These contain techniques, exercises, safeguards. Everything the speakers learned over centuries." "How long do we have?" "Until someone tries again." His expression darkened. "The sanctuary's protections are strong, but not infinite. We have days. Maybe a week." A sound echoed from the cave entrance. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving with inhuman speed. Adrian's hand shot to the knife at his belt. Or maybe hours. He positioned himself between Lydia and the entrance. "Get behind the stacks. Don't speak unless I tell you to. Your voice is too powerful to use recklessly. Adrian, trust me." Figures emerged from the darkness. Not vampires, something else. Pale, twisted things with too many joints and eyes that reflected light like animals. They moved with horrible, jerking motions, weapons glinting in their malformed hands. "Revenants," Adrian hissed. "Corpses animated by blood magic. They can't be reasoned with. Can't be stopped except by destroying them completely." There were at least 10 of them, spreading out to surround the library's center. And behind them, a voice Lydia recognized with sinking dread. "Hello, brother. Did you really think a dusty old cave could keep me out?" Damien stepped into the light, smiling like a knife. "Damien." Adrian's voice was ice and fury. "You brought revenants to a sacred sanctuary. That's a violation of laws written when true speakers walked freely." Damien circled the perimeter, his revenants following like grotesque shadows. "Times change, brother. Those old laws died with Catherine Morrison." "You tried to kill her," Lydia said, realization hitting. "At the warehouse. That was you." "That was a test," Damien corrected. "To see if you'd panic. Use your power recklessly. You passed beautifully, freezing 30 vampires with a single word. Imagine what you could do with proper motivation." "I'm not helping you. Not yet. But you will," he gestured, and the revenants moved closer, their joints cracking obscenely. "See, Adrian's been telling you half-truths. Protecting you, training you, but never asking the real question. Why now? Why did your powers manifest after 3 years of dormancy?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Damien. It wasn't random, Lydia. Eleanor's seal should have lasted decades after her death. But something or someone deliberately broke it early. Someone who wanted a true speaker active again." Damien's amber eyes gleamed. "Guess who benefits most from having an untrained, desperate speaker under their protection?" Lydia's stomach turned. She looked at Adrian. "Is that true?" "It's complicated," Adrian said, not meeting her eyes. "Complicated," Damien laughed. "That's one word for it. Adrian's been losing influence for years. The council questions his authority. Younger clans challenge his territory. But a true speaker bound to him through gratitude and dependence? That changes everything." "I never broke Eleanor's seal," Adrian said sharply. "But I won't pretend I haven't benefited from Lydia's appearance." The admission hit like a slap. Lydia backed away from both of them. "So this whole time, the training, the protection, you were just—" "No," Adrian turned to her, and for the first time, she saw something raw in his expression. "It started as strategy. I admit that. But you're not a pawn, Lydia. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "You're more than I expected." "How touching," Damien drawled. "But irrelevant." "Lydia, I'm offering you the truth Adrian won't. You're a tool. You'll always be a tool. The only question is who wields you. Choose me, and I'll give you real power. Freedom. Protection without manipulation." "You literally just attacked me with corpse puppets." "A demonstration. I needed you to see Adrian's limitations. He's bound by honor, by outdated codes. I'm not." Damien moved closer, his revenants spreading wider. "Join me willingly, or I take you by force. Either way, You're too valuable to leave in my brother's incompetent hands. Adrian drew his blade, a wickedly curved thing that looked ancient and thirsty. You'll have to go through me. Gladly. The revenants attacked. Adrian moved like lightning, his blade cutting through dead flesh with surgical precision. But there were too many, and they felt no pain, no fear. They just kept coming, clawing and biting and dragging him down through sheer numbers. Lydia stumbled backward, mind racing. One word. She could end this with one word. Freeze them like at the warehouse. But what if she froze Adrian too? What if she killed them all, including herself? A revenant lurched toward her, jaw hanging broken, hands reaching. Lydia! Adrian shouted, pinned beneath 3 of the creatures. Run!
But where?
The cave had only one exit, and Damien blocked it, watching with clinical interest. Just say the word, Damien called. Command them to stop. Command Adrian to stand down. Command me to serve you. You have the power. Use it. The revenant grabbed her arm, its touch cold and wrong. Lydia screamed. And then someone else was there. Vera, Adrian's blonde lieutenant, appeared from a hidden passage, moving with deadly grace. She tore through revenants with her bare hands, each strike precise and devastating. 2 more vampires followed her, Marcus and the red-haired woman from Adrian's court. Took you long enough, Adrian gasped, fighting free. You said to wait for the right moment, Vera replied, snapping a revenant's spine. Seemed right. Damien's confidence cracked. You knew I was coming. We suspected someone would try to take her from inside our organization, Marcus said coldly. You were always the obvious candidate. Too ambitious. Too impatient. This isn't over. Yes, Adrian said, his blade at Damien's throat faster than Lydia could track. It is. You violated sanctuary. Raised revenants. Attempted kidnapping. The council will strip your territory for this. Damien's smile never wavered. The council won't exist much longer. Others share my vision, brother. Others who understand that the old ways are dying. This was just the opening move. He moved impossibly fast, slipping past Adrian's blade and diving toward the cave entrance. A revenant grabbed Lydia as he passed, pulling her off balance. Stop, she shouted instinctively. Everything froze again. But this time, Lydia felt the difference. She'd spoken with intention, with focus. The command was surgical. Only the revenants locked in place, not her allies. Damien turned at the entrance, impressed despite himself. You're learning.
Good.
You'll need every bit of that skill for what's coming. Then he was gone, vanishing into the darkness. The frozen revenants collapsed into dust as Lydia's command released them from their unnatural animation. Silence filled the library. Adrian approached carefully, like she might bolt. Lydia. Don't, she held up a hand, surprised by how steady her voice was. You used me. Maybe you have feelings now, maybe you don't. But you used me. Yes, he said simply. And I'm sorry. But that doesn't change what you are, or the danger you're in. Damien wasn't bluffing. This is bigger than him. Bigger than us. Lydia looked at Vera, Marcus, the others, all watching her with varying degrees of respect and fear. Then I need to be stronger, she said. Strong enough that no one can use me. Not you, not Damien, not anyone. Adrian nodded slowly. I'll teach you. Everything. Why should I trust you? Because, he said quietly, if I truly only saw you as a tool, I wouldn't have just risked everything to protect you. I would have let Damien take you and dealt with the aftermath. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even a full apology. But it was honest, and right now that was all Lydia had.
Fine, she said.
But next time someone tries to kill me, I'm fighting back. With words that will make them regret ever learning my name. Adrian almost smiled. I'm counting on it. 2 days of intensive training left Lydia's voice hoarse and her mind sharp as a blade. She'd learned to speak with layers, surface meaning and command woven together. She'd practiced until simple words like peace or truth could resonate with enough force to shatter stone. Now she stood on a windswept cliff overlooking the ocean, surrounded by vampires who wanted her dead, controlled, or both. The summit had been Adrian's idea, neutral ground, witnessed by all major clans, a final attempt at preventing civil war. Because that's what Damien's rebellion had become. Dozens of younger vampires rallying behind him, convinced the old order needed to burn. 50 vampires gathered on the clifftop ruins of what might have once been a temple. Ancient stones marked with symbols Lydia now recognized as speaker script, designed to prevent violence within their boundaries. The magic was faded but still present, a tingle against her skin. Damien stood opposite Adrian, with Celine and 3 other clan leaders forming a tense semicircle between them. The ocean crashed against rocks far below, wind whipping hair and clothes with indifferent fury. "Let's be clear," Damien announced, projecting his voice. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to expose the corruption Adrian represents. His hoarding of the true speaker. His manipulation of someone who should belong to all vampire kind, not one family's political agenda. I belong to myself," Lydia said clearly. Every head turned toward her. She stepped forward, feeling the weight of their attention like physical pressure. Adrian had positioned himself close but not protectively, letting her stand on her own authority. "You all keep talking about me like I'm a prize," she continued, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "A weapon.
A tool.
But I'm a person who stumbled into your world by accident, and I'm tired of being everyone's pawn." "Noble sentiments," Celine said coolly. "But ultimately naive. You have power that affects us all. That makes you our concern whether you like it or not." "Then let me prove I'm not the threat you fear." Lydia had rehearsed this moment with Adrian, but now that it was here, the words felt heavier than expected. True speakers were peacekeepers. "So let me keep peace. Let me show you what I can really do." "A demonstration?" Marcus looked skeptical. "We've seen you freeze vampires and destroy revenants. We know you're powerful." "You know I'm dangerous," Lydia corrected. "There's a difference. Power is just force." But the old speakers did something more. They revealed truth. Forced honesty in negotiations. Made lies impossible. She took a breath. "Let me do that now. For all of you." Damien's eyes narrowed. "What are you proposing?" "A truth circle. An old speaker technique. She'd found it in the library texts, one of the most advanced abilities. I speak a binding that makes deception impossible within its boundaries. Then we talk. Openly. About what everyone actually wants. No schemes, no hidden agendas. Just truth." The vampires exchanged glances, suspicion and intrigue warring on their faces. "That's suicide," Victor said bluntly. "Truth without diplomacy? It'll cause more violence, not prevent it." "Maybe," Lydia admitted. "But at least you'll know who your real enemies are. Right now, you're all suspecting each other, forming alliances based on lies and half-truths. This cuts through all of it." Adrian touched her arm lightly. "Are you certain? This kind of working is exhausting. Dangerous." "I'm certain," she met his eyes. "Unless you have something to hide." His expression flickered, caught between pride and concern. "Nothing that matters." "Then we do this," Damien said suddenly, surprising everyone. "I have nothing to hide either. Let the truth fall where it may." Lydia moved to the circle's center, where the speaker script glowed faintest. She'd practiced the words, but doing them here, now, with everything at stake, was different. She spoke. Not in English. In the old tongue Adrian had taught her, each syllable precisely weighted. Veritas vinculum. Truth unbroken. Words unspoken become visible. Lies impossible. So I speak, so it becomes. The air crystallized. Lydia felt something tear inside her chest, not painful, but profound, like giving away part of herself. The ancient symbols blazed to life, expanding into a circle of light that encompassed everyone on the clifftop. The effect was immediate. "I never broke your seal," Adrian said suddenly, the words pulled from him. "But I knew who did. One of my own strategists, working secretly with council members who wanted a true speaker under controlled circumstances. I said nothing because it benefited me. Shocked silence. I've been skimming territory taxes, Victor confessed, voice strained. For decades. Enough to fund my own army if needed. I poisoned Adrian's advisor last year. The red-haired woman gasped, hand flying to her mouth. She discovered I was feeding information to human hunters. Confessions spilled out like water through a broken dam. Vampires tried to stay silent and couldn't, the truth forcing itself past their lips. Betrayals. Secret alliances. Murders. Plots within plots within plots. Damien fought visibly, his jaw clenched, before the words burst out. I don't actually care about reform. I just want power. Everything I've said about the old ways dying. It's manipulation. I'd be worse than Adrian ever was. He looked furious and horrified at his own admission. Lydia stood in the center, channeling the working, feeling every truth like a weight added to her shoulders. This was what the speakers had done, borne the burden of absolute honesty, forced order through revelation. Now you know, she said, voice rough with effort. All of your sins. All of your secrets. The circle's light pulsed. So here's the question. Do you destroy each other over it? Or do you build something better? For a long moment no one spoke. Then Celine laughed. A bitter, genuine sound. We're all terrible. Every single one of us. Yes, Marcus agreed. But at least now we know it.
No pretense.
I still want power, Damien said, the truth working still forcing honesty. But maybe, not like this. Not through lies that would make me exactly what I claimed to oppose. Adrian looked at Lydia with something that might have been awe. You just dismantled centuries of vampire politics in 5 minutes. Good, Lydia said. The circle was fading, her strength nearly spent. Maybe now you can build something that doesn't require a true speaker to keep you honest. The light died. Lydia collapsed. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground, his arms surprisingly gentle for someone who just admitted to conspiracy. You magnificent, impossible woman, he whispered. Lydia smiled despite her exhaustion. Did the truth circle make you say that? No, he said, and his honesty needed no magic. That's just me. Dawn painted Lydia's apartment building in shades of gold and pink, ordinary, beautiful, and blessedly familiar. She stood on the sidewalk, Adrian beside her, staring up at her third-floor window where this had all begun 6 days ago. It felt like a lifetime. You don't have to do this, Adrian said quietly. The sanctuary is safer. My estate has resources you'd never have here. I know, Lydia adjusted the bag on her shoulder, filled with speaker texts Adrian had insisted she keep. But this is my home, my life. I'm not spending the rest of my existence hiding in caves and mansions. The summit had ended without bloodshed, barely. The forced honesty had fractured old alliances and formed unlikely new ones. Damien had actually apologized, though he'd looked like it physically hurt. The clans had agreed to a temporary truce while they processed everything that had been revealed. It was fragile, imperfect, but it was something. The summoning is still active, Adrian reminded her. Technically, you commanded my presence that night. Until you formally release the binding, I'm magically obligated to answer if I call. I remember Lydia had found a release phrase in the library, ancient words that would sever the connection completely. She'd memorized them.
Hadn't used them yet.
Why haven't you? Adrian asked, reading her hesitation. You could have spoken them days ago. Lydia watched the sunrise, choosing her words carefully, a habit now, probably forever. Because once I do, there's nothing keeping you in my life.
No magical obligation.
No strategic value.
Just
choice. And you think without the binding I'd leave? I don't know, she finally looked at him. Would you? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. The rising sun caught in his silver eyes, making them almost warm. I've lived for centuries, Lydia. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've known thousands of people, humans and vampires alike. But I've never met anyone who stood in front of 50 hostile vampires and chose radical honesty as a weapon. Who turned vulnerability into strength. That's not an answer. The answer is no. I wouldn't leave. He stepped closer, and Lydia's heart did something complicated. The summoning brought me to you, but it's not what keeps me here. You are. Even knowing how dangerous you are. Especially knowing. I'm still dangerous, Lydia warned. Still learning. I might accidentally command you to do something terrible. Then I'll trust you not to. His smile was slight but genuine. Besides, being dangerous suits you. Lydia felt warmth bloom in her chest. Not magic, just emotion. I need to say the words. Break the binding. It's not fair otherwise. I know. She spoke carefully. Each syllable of the ancient phrase weighted with intention. Vinculum fractum dal Juan Giachuo. The summoning ends. The obligation releases. What was commanded becomes choice. So I speak, so it becomes. The air shimmered. Lydia felt something snap, not painfully but definitively. The magical thread that had connected them since that first accidental text dissolved like morning mist. Adrian took a breath, testing. It's gone. I can feel it. He looked at her. I could walk away right now. You could. He didn't move. Or, Lydia said, surprised by her own boldness, you could come upstairs. Meet Mr. Whiskers. Have terrible coffee from my finally fixed coffee maker. And we could figure out what this is without magic forcing anything. Mr. Whiskers? My cat. He's orange and judgmental. You'll hate each other. Adrian laughed. Actually laughed, the sound warmer than she'd ever heard. I'd like that. Though I should warn you, I'm terrible with cats. Good thing you're not magically obligated to make him like you. They walked toward the building entrance. Mrs. Chun was already peering through her window, eyes wide at the sight of Adrian's expensive suit and otherworldly presence. Lydia waved. Gossip would spread through the building by noon. Normal. Beautifully, mundanely normal. What happens now? Adrian asked as they climbed the stairs. With your powers, the clans, everything? Lydia considered. I keep learning. Keep growing stronger. Stay ready in case someone else decides I'm too dangerous to live. But on my terms. In my home. With people I choose to trust. She paused at her door. And maybe, if you're interested, you help me figure out how to use these abilities for something good. Real peacekeeping, not just dramatic demonstrations. I'm interested, Adrian said. Very interested. Lydia unlocked her door. Mr. Whiskers sat in the middle of the living room, orange tail twitching, glaring at Adrian with feline suspicion. Mr. Whiskers, meet Adrian. He's the vampire king, but he's working on being less murder-why. Adrian, meet Mr. Whiskers. He's a cat, but he's working on being less of a tyrant. Adrian crouched down, extending one hand cautiously. Mr. Whiskers sniffed, considered, then deliberately turned his back and walked away. He'll warm up to you, Lydia said. How long did it take you? 3 years. I adopted him as a rescue. He'd been through a lot. 3 years, Adrian straightened, smiling. I can work with that timeline. Lydia moved to her tiny kitchen, filling the coffee maker with water. Through the window, she could see the city waking up, humans going about their lives, completely unaware that vampires existed, that true speakers walked among them, that words could literally reshape reality. She'd been one of them a week ago. Exhausted, ordinary, anonymous. Now she was something else. Something powerful and dangerous, and still learning what that meant. But she was still Lydia Chun. Still made terrible coffee and complained about her boss and loved her judgmental cat. The magic hadn't erased her humanity, it had just added layers. So, Adrian said, settling carefully onto her lumpy couch. Tell me about your life. The real one. Before luxury cars and vampire politics. Lydia brought him coffee. He sipped it politely and couldn't quite hide his grimace, and sat beside him. And she talked. About her childhood, her grandmother's careful lessons, her dreams of maybe someday opening her own cafe. Normal things. Human things. Things that mattered because they were hers. Adrian listened like he had all the time in the world. Because he did. And maybe, just maybe, so did she. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, a true speaker and a vampire king shared terrible coffee and tentative hope. The summoning had ended. But their story was just beginning.